Josh is a 2014 graduate from our chapter at Massachusetts Delta at MIT, where he graduated with a degree in chemical biological engineering. After graduation, Josh joined our headquarters staff and served as a regional director for a year before moving out to San Francisco, where he joined on with a startup company in sales and product development, and then took his skills a little bit farther to some household name places like Tesla, where he worked as a project manager on the Model 3 program, then to Harley Davidson, where he worked as a program manager on electrical powertrain development. And about a year ago, incredibly excitingly, Josh founded his own company, Noya Labs, where he is the CEO, working on large-scale projects to reverse climate change by pulling CO2 from the sky through safe and sustainable methods. Outside of work, Josh is a great brother, a great friend to all, and we're incredibly thankful to have him here with us tonight. Josh, take it away.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate the intro, and thanks to SIGEP for having me here. I remember being, at least in your not your actual shoes, because this is over Zoom and everything's weird, but I remember being in your theoretical shoes, where I was a president 2 times actually in my chapter, once as a sophomore, once as a junior, and was really stoked about getting to learn a lot about people that I thought I looked up to. So I'm surprised that I'm here, because now that means that hopefully I can teach you guys something, and it feels like I'm just beginning to get my feet under me when it comes to getting things to teach to everybody. So I don't know what you guys think, but when I think about all you chapter presidents out there, it's a huge honor for me to be chatting with you today. When I was putting this presentation together, I was having trouble figuring out where to start. And I think it's because all of the ideas that I have associated with what it means to be a chapter leader don't take into account the fact that for all of you, it's been a really strange year. And so I think we should maybe acknowledge that. Nobody in high school promised you the opportunity to study hard, crush your SATs, get a good GPA, do all those extracurriculars for the chance to pay tuition for Zoom classes. And despite that, you all have persevered, not just in your education, but also in your desire to act as a leader on your campus and your chapter. And that is something to be commended. During today's presentation, I hope to make it engaging. And the way that I'm going to do that is by the same way I would do that if we were all in the same room, which is just by a show of hands. Hopefully everybody here knows how to use the Zoom raise hands features. And if you don't, this is a great chance to learn. Right under at the bottom of Zoom where it says participants, is that where it's at? No, it's actually under reactions. There's a button that says raise hand. So we're going to use that today a few times, because this is a Zoom call, and it's going to get boring after 5 minutes unless we do something like that to shake it up, no matter how engaging of a speaker I am. So we're going to start that out right now by a show of Zoom hands. I'm really curious, how many of you are in a leadership position in your chapter for the first time here? Raise your Zoom hand if this is the case for you. All right, we've got about 11 Zoom hands, a thumbs up symbol from somebody here. Keep it raised, please. So we got 11 folks that are in leadership. 12. Yep, keep it raised. Raise your hand. I know it's weird, right? It's like, where the hell is that button at on Zoom? All right. Let's do a little bit of this. Austin Lubell, can you unmute yourself and answer the question why you wanted to do this? Why did you choose to take on a leadership position for the first time virtually as the leader of the chapter in this situation?
I should specify I'm actually the VP of operations for my chapter, but my path to my position was filled with different activities that led to me becoming VP of operations. And naturally, I felt it was the next progressive step. I've always been someone to take challenges head on, and it just seemed like the next step progressing up.
Got it. Well, I'm glad that you're here, and hopefully my lessons here will help Grayson Raymer, why did you choose to take your first leadership position in a virtual world?
Uh, it kind of just like, I guess, came across as like a really cool opportunity. I talked to the previous chapter president, or actually, I guess the chapter president when I came in to SIGAP at OU, and he kind of like spoke of like how cool of an opportunity it was to have like this much influence and kind of get to leave a mark on the guys that are younger and older than you. And so I guess that kind of just stirred up some thought initially for me. And then just through a lot of different conversation with our previous president, I just thought it'd be a really cool opportunity to take it up and, see what I could do to try to leave the chapter a better place.
Awesome. That's inspiring. I love that passion. I love that desire. And it's one that I hope others share as well. I'm going to keep moving. If you have your hand up, please put it down. We'll have some more chance for engagement later. But I kind of want to just bring to the table an idea, which is that that there is a lot of power in weird times. If you think about historically what some of the weird times we've seen are, one most recently was the big 2008 crisis, where Lehman Brothers folded and many people lost a lot of money. But out of that were born some pretty great things, right? Uber, Facebook, Airbnb, which you might be able to argue about whether or not they're good for society, but they are good financially, right? They're strong businesses that have made this world as we know it incredibly different. And so I would argue that now is the best time to hone these types of skills because, it's weird, which means you're going to have knowledge that other people won't. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people taking advantage of these weird times too in climate tech. And there are tons of companies that are popping up like us at Noya to solve this huge problem of climate change right now. And what I'm really grateful for is that being one of these companies in today's weird times, working on solving the hardest problem that anybody can be working on solving today, is that I have had such a great set of experiences to learn a ton of valuable lessons on from my time in the fraternity as an undergraduate and my time in the fraternity professionally as well. And so really what I want to share with you all today, it's pretty simply, it's how SIGEP helped me raise $4.5 million in venture capital, and how hopefully you can take those lessons and maybe not raise the same amount, maybe raise a lot more, but do something great with it in the future whenever you get to the point where you're in a professional capacity as well. So when I was actually another question for you that I'll ask right now is show of hands here. Let's get some Zoom hands going again. What does it mean to set a vision as a leader? Who can think of like specific instances or specific steps that you need to take to set the vision for your chapter or the people that you're leading? Give me a raise of Zoom hands if you can think of anything there. Luke Bailey from Colorado Alpha. What does it mean to set a vision?
Yeah, hey guys. For me, that was kind of the main reason why I stepped into presidency. Colorado Alpha went through a membership review last year, and so it's been a huge change. There's only about 3 guys left that were in the chapter from over a year ago. So the whole thing with the new guys is to build a collective goal on how we want to be. And for us, that's different than what the guys were in Boulder before us, because they let everything that, SIGEP values and holds true to themselves not be what we were at all. So for us, our goal is to learn from other successful chapters across the nation and get back on track to what makes SIGEP, one of the best fraternities in the country.
Love that. Henry White, first of all, kudos for wearing a suit. You are really taking it to the next level. I hope that you guys do that in all your virtual chapter meetings as well, so that you're wearing underwear on the bottom. What does it mean to set a vision for you?
First off, happy accident with the suit. Just a lot of virtual meetings back to back.
Whatever, man.
But yeah, I think vision setting involves a lot of consensus building amongst people who are directly impacted as members of the organization, but also other stakeholders, partners, people who are supporting your organization. And then also with that vision is kind of challenging existing conceptions and trying to push beyond, see like, what are the things we haven't even considered yet that can push us further into the future.
I love that. I love that. I think both of those answers are amazing because they're both looking at what we should be and what we can be as well. Thank you for that. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned so far over my time is that at the end of the day, as the leader, you are the one that's responsible for setting the vision, and you can't do that without having vision yourself. And there are a few things that I mean when I say that. I think an important disclaimer for me to make is that nobody, not me, not any of the facilitators for any of your sessions, nobody is actually going to make the vision of your chapter for you. You're the leader. You were elected. It is your job and your job only to make that vision. We can help. I can ask amazing questions to get you along that path, but you have to be responsible for that. What I can help you with and what I can truly talk to in terms of having the vision yourself and helping people walk towards that is giving you a few tips on ways to do that, ways to take that vision that you have built and distribute that across your chapter. The first part of, I think, doing this, of how you actually get this vision spread across your chapter, is that you have to figure out a way to make your why their why. There's a lot of people that I'll actually give you an example of what I mean here. There's a lot of people that I speak with every day in my role as co-founder and CEO of this business. I speak with investors. I speak with potential customers. I speak with random people on the internet. I speak with my team members. I speak with people we're trying to install our facility and our factories onto. There are a lot of different stakeholders with a lot of different interests that align with none of each other, right? The people that I'm taking $4.5 million in venture capital from don't really care about what the people that I'm selling CO2 to. They don't care about the same things. They're not motivated by the same actions. They have different motivations and different inherent things that they're looking out for. And it's my job alone to take the vision that I've set for us here at Noya, which is to reverse climate change, and translate that into specific things that they can understand. When I'm pitching my company to investors, I have to promise them that it's going to be a huge financial reward for them to invest in us, and that they're going to see $1 million for each dollar that they put into the business. When I'm pitching my company to potential partners, I have to tell them that we're going to help them make additional money by pulling CO2 out of the sky and be able to lower their carbon footprint. That's a very different mission than what I just told my investors. And I have to do this for every single group of people that I talk to. It's a very active thing that I'm thinking about because it's what allows me to influence these people in terms that they understand. And so your task as the leader is to understand that. You have to understand what are the things that are going on in the people's heads that you're trying to lead and influence, and how can you translate your vision to match the specific motivations that each of these people have. So that's your job, and that's not easy. It's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do well, but it's something that hopefully we can take actionable steps on. So if I was to give you guys a take-home task and some homework on top of all the other stuff I'm sure you have to do right now, this is one of the things I would ask of you. I would ask you to brainstorm ways to frame whatever your vision is, whatever your chapter's number one goal is, to all of the stakeholders that matter in your chapter. Some of those stakeholders might be the Greek office on site, right? It might be the people that are actually running and facilitating fraternity and sorority life at your campus. It might be your alumni board. It might be potential new members. It might be parents of current members. Whoever those important stakeholders are, and that's something that you have to be able to figure out. But whoever those people are, think about different ways to frame your goal in terms of things they might care about. If it's somebody's parents, you could tell them that you're going to help them have an amazing experience that they're going to remember forever. If it's the campus officers, it might be that you're going to be a leader on campus to help influence people to join fraternity and sorority life and ultimately start changing not only that life in general, but also that life on that campus. Everybody has a motivation. And so if you can figure out how to get to that, you become a powerful leader and somebody that can influence people in the long term. The second sort of tip that I have here is that as the leader that's trying to spread a vision, your job is to beat the dead horse. There is a when I was a regional director, I traveled and saw like 20 different chapters across California and Nevada. And some of you may be from some of those chapters. Some of you may have never heard of any of these chapters over here. I saw a lot of them. And I remember seeing, it was very palpable, the differences between leaders that were good at beating the dead horse and over communicating their vision and leaders that weren't. At good chapters that were doing this well, you would see it everywhere. Every chapter meeting, they would talk about the goals. The leaders would bring it up. They'd start the meeting with that. And every officer would relate what they're doing back to that goal. It was something that was being communicated everywhere. By comparison, some of my chapters would pass a butt cup full of beer around the chapter meeting. And that was how they communicated their livelihoods to each other. That is not where you as leaders want to be. And the nice thing is that you as leaders have the direct authority to end those types of practices and implement things that are going to be beneficial for you and your chapter as you're going forward, to make sure that you're over communicating this message. Because I think the hardest lesson, or one of the hardest lessons I've learned, is that I can never assume that people are going to remember what I'm telling them. I can never assume that what I've said and what I've communicated is going to stick. So your job is to over communicate that. Second take-home task that I have for you here is to identify the opportunities you have to repeat your core messaging to your chapter. Whatever that vision is, whatever you want to get across, you need to think about that, and take every opportunity you can to really hone in on it. The third pro tip here, when it comes to how to effectively communicate your vision to your chapter, is to remember that you have an infinite pot of gold at your disposal to give people some type of reward, and that is in the form of relentless praise. If you look at what culture is ultimately defined as, culture is nothing more than the sum of every habit that organizations do on a day-to-day basis. And so if you break that down, if culture is the sum of all of these things, then you can actually engineer culture, right? You can design culture specifically how you want it to be, because all you have to do is design the habits that you and your chapter does on a week-by-week basis. So I think that it is important that you take this into account, because you're the one that's ultimately responsible for your chapter's culture. And that exists in the form of the habits that you take on. At Noya, we are very mindful of this. Every week we have a team meeting, and every team meeting I start with the number one goal that we need to hit to be not default dead. And what I mean by that is that unless we hit this number one goal, by default, we are dead in a year or a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years. But we have to solve this thing. And unless we solve this technical challenge that we're facing right now in the form of capturing CO2 from the sky, we do not have a future. And I start every single meeting with that reminder, because everybody needs to be wary of it, and that is part of our culture. We exist to fix this problem, and the way we fix this problem is by constantly making sure that everything we do is somehow related to that one goal. You guys can do the same thing. You can build these types of cultures in, and as you're doing that, make sure that you're praising people, right? The best thing that I can do for my people here is reward them with praise and good faith whenever they're doing things that directly relate back to the culture that we've tried to build. So it's important that you recognize that you can engineer your culture, and you can thank people and reward them publicly and privately to ultimately serve the culture that you want to design. So the last take-home task that I have for you folks is to do exactly that. Identify the opportunities that you have to regularly build the culture of thanking people for their service to your shared vision into the habits that you do. Is there a time in chapter meetings where you can regularly thank people for what they're doing? Is there some moment in some committee meeting where you can make sure that your officers are thanking people for what they're doing? this is the type of culture that you want to instill. And you want to do that by just making sure that you're positively influencing good behavior and ultimately letting that sort of thing trickle down. So make sure that you're very, very cautious about this, and do not sleep on the fact that you have a strong war chest of thanks that you can pay people from, a heavy bank. It's I think that there's a lot more lessons that I could go on for, and I have many things to share. But the sort of last thing that I want to leave you all with is that if you can set the vision of your chapter with eyes wide open, and you can work to build small wins and get one more point on the scoreboard, and keep implementing these types of behaviors and these types of practices within your chapter, then you will leave your chapter in a better place where it started, and you will have had a crazy amount of influence in these weird and strange times that we're all in today. So use your fellow chapter members, use me, use each other, use SIGEP headquarters resources to figure out how exactly you can spread this vision across your chapter. But it's something that can be done. So thank you guys for your time, your energy, your attention. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll take any questions that you may have for me now.
Well, thank you for that, Josh. For everybody, feel free to toss questions if you have them. You can put them in the chat, or welcome yourself to come off of mute. I've got a couple questions and things that I'm even curious about learning more as well. But we'll turn it over to all of you as chapter leaders. What questions do we have?
Hey, Josh, really appreciate that insight. I think the biggest question that I'm wrestling with right now is just regarding boiling what I see is like a lot of different directions we want to go in, a pretty wide vision. How do you boil that down into kind of one thing that you can then adapt to a couple different scenarios, whatever it might be, different stakeholder groups and things like that? Just trying to get it boiled down to something a little more tangible, I guess.
People have said that Steve Jobs was best known for his ability to clearly communicate everything that he said to everybody that he spoke with. And he was able to do that because he used very simple, concise language, simple messaging, and simple words to describe everything that he did. So I think that if you're looking across this grand vision that you have, and it encompasses, you know, a few different points of action and a few different strategies, chances are that there's a chance to simplify. And without getting into the specifics, and I'm happy to do so, by the way, but without getting into the specifics, it's going to be really hard for me to say. But if I'm thinking, maybe my vision for the chapter is to be the number one GPA on campus with the strongest manpower and I don't know, the hottest guys or whatever, right? Like best shaped dudes. If that's my vision for the chapter, that's too complicated. And that's too complicated because those are specific implementations of what success actually looks like. What the vision for that chapter in those three goals may be something like build a top tier campus defining organization. And maybe that's the vision. And from there, you can start breaking that down into what that actually looks like across all of your different members. And that's where you can actually lean on your officers, right? You have a VP of recruitment, and his job is to build you the best manpower chapter on campus. You have somebody in member development whose job is to ensure that your chapter membership has the best GPA on campus. Whatever the case may be, you need one statement that everything can kind of pinnacle up to. I like to think of it as our Mount Everest, right? When you're looking at Mount Everest, it's easy to see the point. It's easy to see what you do when you get to the top. It's like when I reach the top of Mount Everest, my vision of getting there, I am there. Along the way, there is a lot that's going to happen, right? There's all these hills I have to climb, and there's going to be some food that I drop, and maybe a rope breaks along the way. The only thing that matters is that I know that I have to get to the top. And so figuring out what the top is, what your Mount Everest is ultimately, I think, the most valuable part of this exercise. And once you have that, then you can communicate that to all of your stakeholders in the right way. Did that make sense and answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, definitely. That was great. Thank you.
Cool. What other questions do we got?
I'll hop in with one that I think of. I think of a lot about culture in any level of an organization. You mentioned that really it's the way you design your habits is how you end up creating your culture. When you think of the type of culture that helps mold you to who you are, to the success that you're seeing now, and to even the culture that you want to build within the organizations you're a part of, like what are the key like these are the top 3, top 5 most important habits that we look to build that say, yeah, this is what makes us.
Yeah, I think that there are habits that you want to instill upon yourself on an individual level and habits that you want to instill at an organizational level. And those are going to be 2 different, distinct, unique, and important things to design. For me, I find it very important to try to maintain a few habits in the morning and a few habits in the evening that really help me at least bookend my day with some sense of normality with whatever may happen in between there. In the morning, I start my day off by meditating for 15 minutes each day. I exercise every morning, doing some calisthenics that anybody might be a little familiar with, and I read every morning. Right now, I'm reading a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by a guy named Ben Horowitz. He founded a company. He's now a venture capitalist. Really great book. Would recommend. And then I always start my day by lining up what the tasks for my day are going to be. So I make sure that I have a plan for my day going into it. And whether or not that plan sticks, at least I knew what I aimed to get done at the end of each day. That's the beginning of my day. The end of each day, I've just added a new one to the list. Flossing is big. I recommend it. Would recommend flossing if you haven't tried it yet. It's game changing. Really, really great. Good for the ego when the dentist says, "Oh, you started doing it finally," and really good for the soul. So flossing's great. I would recommend brushing your teeth as well at the end of each day. That's always good too. But I also have been recently with my partner and I doing a gratitude practice at the end of each day. So she and I will communicate to each other 3 things that we're grateful for from the day at the end of the day. And that just really helps us. I mean, I fall asleep within 30 seconds of my head hitting the pillow regardless. But it really helps me at least going to sleep in a good mood that isn't sort of like, loaded with the things from the day. So those are the sort of the bookends of my personal day, at least at home. And then when I come here, we start with a daily sync. That's where me and the rest of the team get together and figure out what the hell we're going to do today. And at the beginning of each week, we do that at a bit of a higher level. So it's what do we need to get done at the week? Where are we at in relation to our timelines? And are there any huge risks that we need to think about mitigating? So I would say at a high level, those are the big habits that I've been trying to implement and instill and enforce along. There are other ones I can talk for way longer about. Habits are something I think a lot about, but I'm sure that that's way more nerdy than what most people here might want to get into. Tariq Shaheen, I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Looks like you have your hand up.
Hey Josh, I have a question. So, how would you say would you keep yourself or us as presidents? How can we keep ourselves motivated in the process of being president? Because sometimes you might feel overwhelmed, or sometimes you might put some effort and not receive the expectations you were expecting, and you might feel like down. So, how would you say keep ourselves in the momentum?
Yeah, I think I need everybody to maybe. That's a great question, and one that I experience a lot as a chapter president and a chapter officer in general, because it's hard sometimes, right? You're putting in all this damn work and nobody cares, and these people keep shotgunning beers on the roof or whatever, and it just becomes a really hard thing to deal with. Like, how the hell do you manage this? So let's, as a group, maybe think about this exercise that we can do together. Think about, maybe hypothetically, what some of the hardest, most frustrating events that may happen to you as a chapter leader might be. Maybe it's you put in a lot of work into recruitment and you you don't get any members. Maybe it's you plan for this big philanthropy and spend more than what you raised. Maybe it's that you realize that that loan you thought your VP of finance was paying off was actually not getting paid off, and now your alumni board is asking for their money. Whatever that is, picture those situations in your mind that at your own chapters may happen. Now, accept that some of them might happen. Just accept that for me, because what, as leaders, you need to recognize is that your job is not easy, and your job is not going to be a beautiful path of daisies the whole way. What I think you can get motivated by, despite this, is the fact that you signed up for this for a reason, right? You wanted to do this for some reason. I don't know what it was. Tarek, what was the reason you decided to sign up for this position?
I was already involved in the executive board, and I believe I'll be a good candidate to step up and volunteer for the position.
Why did you believe
And
that?
basically the main purpose was it because I believe I had the ability to make a change or cause an impact in the organization and on campus.
And why did you believe that?
I believe the people who were around me supported me, and from experience in the fraternity, I believe I was confident enough in myself.
So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. All of you should do this same type of exercise before you get into the mud of chapter operations. Each and every one of you should think about what got you into this role in the first place, and write it down, literally write it down somewhere that you'll be able to find and remember, that's not in a notepad digitally somewhere that you're never going to see again. Physically write it down on this piece of paper. You might want to put it on a mirror. You might keep it in a drawer. Maybe it's in your diary. I don't know. Wherever you keep it, write it down. And when times get hard, go back to that sheet of paper, because times are going to get hard. And especially for you. Remember how we started this? This is a strange time, right? I've gotten one of my 2 jabs, but who knows with the B1169, whatever, whether or not that the next variant is going to mean that we're actually not out of this. You guys are signed up for a hard position in a weird time, and that is a positive. That is one of the strongest and best decisions I think you could have made for yourself in your chapter experience and in your undergraduate experience, because you're going to learn stuff that people cannot understand. But you have to remember exactly why you got into it, and the reason and the motivations. And you're not going to get there by just saying, why did I do this? Because notice I had to ask Tarek like 3 whys for him to get to something that I think was a true, deeper motivation. Each and every one of you should do that as well. I would say at least ask yourself 3, maybe 5. I almost asked 2 more of you, Tarek, and I didn't, because I figured it would be picking on you, and I didn't want to do that. You seem like a great guy. But ask yourself at least 3 whys when you're trying to get to your motivation, to get to the actual motivation. And then remember that. Keep that in mind. Use your support group, right? Do like vent to people as you need it. Use each other on this call. Support systems exist for a reason. You should use them, but you have to be your own support system as well. And building that mental toughness and mental strength is going to be a huge skill as you get into your professional careers.
Thank you.
Peyton Elliott from Ohio IOTA. What's up, man?
Hey, yeah, I just had a quick question. I feel like one thing that my chapter struggles with is keeping people around, like as they get older. So I was just wondering if you had any tips on kind of how to combat that, or whatever you may have.
Yeah, what does your chapter offer for older members?
I think that we've really started to work on having more brother mentor modules and making those a little bit more fun. And I think I've seen like a little bit of improvement there. But other than that, like, I don't know, I feel like when they get older, as they get busier, internships, co-ops and stuff like that, it's harder to get them to kind of swing back around. But
why do brother mentor modules matter?
Just to kind of keep them active, like have them stick around a little bit.
And are they active in the way they want to be active?
What do you mean by that?
What are they looking to get out of the modules?
Well, I guess I haven't really asked myself that.
This is and I think this is what it comes back to, the vision setting that we were talking about. When it requires sort of active engagement, and we just did a startup accelerator, and I'll make a business comparison here and take it back to what we're talking about now. We just did one of the most well-known startup accelerators in the country. It's called Y Combinator. The acceptance rate, they say, is like lower than Harvard's, and we were fortunate enough to get in. And the core message, the one I can distill everything that they said down into 4 words, and those 4 words are: build something people want. And they're teaching that to startups, because if you're a startup, the way you become relevant in people's lives is by providing people, whether it's consumers, other businesses, other whatever, doesn't matter, providing them with something that they're going to want and pay for and actually allow you to build a business on top of. And so the way that you do that is you go out, you talk to people, you figure out what they need, and then you build something that meets those needs. The same exact philosophy applies to not just older members in the chapter, but everybody in the chapter, right? Everybody joins a chapter initially for one reason or another, right? Maybe it's increased brothership, maybe it's access to a social network, maybe it's more events to attend, whatever that may be. Everybody has an initial reason, and as they get older, the reason that the needs that they have change, and the things that they're looking for change. In the same way that as people get older, right, they move from not needing a chiropractor to needing a chiropractor. Not that I would know, but you experience different needs as you age, and that doesn't change from your undergraduates, your undergraduate members. And so I would recommend just kind of, asking them about not, and this is the hard thing that I think, where the nuance lies. It's not asking them, what can SIGEP do to help you in your life? It's asking them, what are you trying to accomplish in your life? What are your goals? What are you striving towards? And what are you ultimately looking to do? And then it's your job as chapter members and chapter leaders to figure out ways to specifically meet those needs that they have, right? SIGEP has to be relevant, and they cannot tell you that how SIGEP can be relevant. It's your job to figure that out. I like to say that there are 2 ways. Organizations live in one of 2 states. They're either innovating or they're dying. And so you need to constantly be innovating and evaluating the things that you're offering to your membership to actually be able to see if it's still relevant and if anybody cares. Because if we're taking a business example again, building something people want is the path for startups to become successful. Offering something members need is the way that undergraduate members will stay in your chapter for their entire time as an undergrad. So I would recommend having those types of conversations with them, and ultimately figuring out what they're trying to get out of their college career, and then figuring out how SIGEP can specifically meet those needs. Now, I apologize if it felt like I was picking on you. I wasn't.
Oh no, that's no big deal. Thank you very much, though.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for all of your questions and the engagement you've brought tonight. We'll go ahead and wrap up our time with Josh here and get into our breakout rooms very quickly. But Josh, one last thank you to you for everything you've brought to us, for investing your time, and to everyone here. Feel free to hit the clap reactions. Feel free to come off mute, clap it up for Josh as well. I know I'm leaving with a page full of notes and a lot of great nuggets and quick whips and quotes that I'm going to be using and putting to work in my own life as well. Josh, any final words, last thoughts from you?
No, I'm really grateful for the time, y'all. And I dropped my email in the chat. Let me know, shoot me a note if I can ever help. And my best wishes go out to you. Use the resources you have available to you, SIGEP headquarters, your local college resources, volunteers, each other, to get through this tough time, because it is hard. It's also the biggest opportunity that we've ever faced. So definitely take advantage of it.